Looking at my analytics, it seems that my most popular videos concern Hovind, Erasmus, and really any creationist of the young earth variety. So until I find something that interests you more than that, I'll take the hit and keep going for your entertainment. Welcome back to the Nexus. Today we're looking at Erasmus's 100 Questions for Evolutionists. I'll be honest, when I first saw this, I really thought he'd pulled most of these questions straight from my responses to him. There were, however, some out of left field. I'll be as brief on these answers as I can be, and we are going to blitz through this in two parts because my pain is your amusement. Dax?
Yes?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
Why do you believe in evolution?
I don't believe in evolution, as there is no such thing. I do, however, accept evolution, as there is an overwhelming amount of evidence supporting it.
Where is your evidence for evolution?
Again, evolution isn't a thing. The evidence for evolution, on the other hand, is quite extensive. It depends on what you're specifically looking for, but if it doesn't violate evolutionary laws, I can turn it up. Some of the evidence I already covered in my prior responses to you.
Have you ever observed evolution?
Yes, when my kids were born. Since evolution is changes in allele frequency in reproductive populations over successive generations, and since my kids are not carbon copies, then yes, I can say I have observed evolution in them alone. But since I'm sure that's not what you're talking about, then since I'm not trained in a field of biology, paleontology, anthropology, or zoology, just to name a few fields, then I rely on the evidence provided by those in the fields, and all of it remains consistent with the theory.
Have you ever seen a dog become a cat?
No, that would violate the law of monophily. Canids and felids are in separate clades within the clade Carnivora. Remember, clades are nested hierarchies, so they are both carnivora, mammals, vertebrates, etc.
Have you ever seen a horse become a cow?
No, once again, the law of monophily prohibits that. They are in separate clades within Ungulata, specifically Perissodactyl for horses, which have odd number toes, and Artiodactyl for cows, which have even number toes.
If no to either, do you have any examples of one animal becoming a different animal?
Since both of your previous questions showed a concerning misunderstanding of the subject, I need to remind you that evolution does not allow that in the way you seem to think it does. I remind you of when I covered the Galapagos finch's diversification on the archipelago.
Why do you strawman creationists and claim we don't accept microevolution?
Most creationists do accept microevolution. I have run into a couple that do not, but due to having to account for the load of animals and the Noachian flood myth, creationists have been forced to accept at least that much evolution, though they don't realize how far that actually goes.
Why do you pretend like evolution is a fact when it is called the theory of evolution for a reason?
We have covered this in detail after this particular video released, if memory serves. Theory has a few meanings, depending on the context it is used in. The everyday colloquial use effectively means it's a guess. That isn't the meaning of the word in science, though. A scientific theory is a body of knowledge with a body of evidence that has predictive power. Scientific theories are made of facts, which means they are both facts and theories. For example, atomic theory, electrical theory, cell theory, and the theory of gravity are simultaneously fact as well as theory. This applies to evolution as well, despite your irrational objections to it.
Do you believe in Lamarck's theory of evolution?
No, I do not accept Lamarckian evolution.
If no, why not?
Lamarckian evolution was fundamentally flawed and was replaced by Darwin's theory because it explained what Lamarck could not, which was the acquiring of new traits. Specifically, Lamarck thought giraffes got their long necks due to stretching to reach higher leaves, and because of that, their descendants would be born with longer necks. That is incorrect. Darwin showed that variation in each batch of siblings would result in some being born with longer necks and thus able to more easily survive and reproduce via natural selection.
Do you believe humans came from monkeys?
As I have stated before, we did not come from monkeys. We are still monkeys today, since we are in the clade of Catarrhini, or Old World monkeys.
If yes, where is your evidence?
For this question in particular, it is in What is Evolution Part 2, link below.
If you believe humans came from monkeys, why did only some monkeys decide to become humans?
There was no decision involved. Evolution is a blind process, literally trying every possible direction at once. One group split off and developed unique mutations that changed that population over time. The only choice, so to speak, was to split off from the ancestral group in the first place.
Do you believe a fish grew legs and crawled out of the ocean?
Yes, stegocephalians like Tiktaalik are the ancestors of all tetrapods. They were the clade that led to vertebrates emerging onto land.
If yes, where is your evidence?
Once again, this is explained in part 2 of What is Evolution when I covered the development of stegocephalians briefly.
Do you believe dinosaurs sprouted wings and became birds?
They didn't suddenly sprout wings one day, but yes, birds are dinosaurs.
If yes, where is your evidence?
What is Evolution Part 2? Once again, the link is below.
Is there a fossil of a creature with a single evolved wing?
I don't know what you mean by single evolved wing here. Do you mean one wing on one side and not even an arm on the other? If so, no, not that I'm aware of.
How do you reconcile the fact that there is a surprising lack of transitional fossils in the fossil record?
That isn't a fact. That is your uninformed and likely misinformed opinion, since all fossils are transitional fossils, something I explain in the video I've repeatedly referenced when I explain bird evolution.
Do you believe whales used to have legs?
Yes, their ancestors did indeed have legs, though they do not now.
If yes, where is your evidence?
Embryology, paleontology, and the occasional atavism, among other things, along with the fact that they still have a pelvis, a vestigial structure that has the primary purpose of supporting the weight of an animal with legs on land. It has been repurposed primarily for reproduction, but that is not the original purpose that it served.
Do you believe vestigial organs are proof of evolution?
Yes, not just vestigial organs, but molecular vestiges like MYH16, which you had already heard about from me in part 1 of What is Evolution before you made this video, and also failed to address in your response to that. The link to What is Evolution part 1 will also be below.
Do you believe similarities in organisms is proof of evolution?
Yes, as I pointed out in part 2, I think it was, there are many similarities between humans and other apes in particular. These similarities continue all the way back down the cladogram.
Have you ever heard the mantra, common design is indicative of a common designer?
I have. That skips an important first step, though. You have to show the evidence of the designer existing before you can attribute anything to said designer. Until that point, I will continue to attribute things in nature to natural things and not supernatural phantasms or figments of the imagination.
Are you aware that the idea that humans share 99% genetic similarity with chimps is a lie?
No, that is not a lie and is once again your ignorance or putting too much trust in those who misinform you. We are around 99% similar to chimps genetically, if you omit things like duplications, deletions, or single changes in bits of the coding. Even including those, it is still around 95% similarity. The discrepancy is a result of not really knowing how to quantify those differences. Do we count the whole duplication of a section as one change or multiple base pair changes? Regardless, the similarity is there.
Do you believe a majority of scientists accept evolution?
Yes, as of 2014, there were under 200 scientists with relevant credentials who gave any credence to creationism in the US out of about 140,000, if memory serves, which means that more than 99% of scientists out there accept evolution.
Do you believe that anyone who questions evolution is an idiot?
That depends entirely on who we're talking about. Someone like you, Erasmus, I think is simply misinformed. Ignorant, yes, but not an idiot. People like Hovind, Ham, and Comfort are liars, though.
Do you believe that evolution could be compatible with Christianity? Example, theistic evolution.
Yes, actually, the idea that God used evolution as his chosen mechanism to achieve the diversity of life we have isn't an idea that I have issue with because it does not ignore the established evidence for evolution. If you want to put a God behind the process, that isn't an issue for me. It is only outright rejection of evidence and denial of science that I have an issue with here.
Do you reject the historical flood as described in Genesis?
Yes, that never happened.
If yes, where is your evidence that the flood didn't happen?
There are several lines of evidence from several different fields of science, including physics, paleontology, geology, zoology, dendrochronology, and genetics, to name a few. But for simplicity, I'll refer you to Aaron Ra's series on that, as he does an outstanding job of covering that particular topic.
Do you believe the historical flood as described in Genesis is an absurd story?
Yes, it is absolutely absurd.
Do you reject the story of the Garden of Eden?
Yes, that never happened either.
If yes, where is your evidence that the Garden of Eden didn't exist?
Genetics alone show that story to be impossible due to the impossibility of a single pair of humans being able to propagate a species. I don't care how perfect your genetic code is, you're still going to incest your way to extinction on the macroscopic level.
Do you think the Garden of Eden is meant to be interpreted as just a metaphor?
Yes, I do. It seems to me to be a coming of age story, having to leave the innocence of childhood behind to take care of yourself.
If yes, why do you feel you are entitled to tell religious people how to interpret their own holy book?
Because you seem to think that you're entitled to tell me how to live my life and what I need to give reverence and adoration to. Keep that to yourself, and we won't have a problem. But if you bring the Bible into it, I'm going to tell you what I think. Deal with it.
Do you believe that a belief in a higher power requires more faith than a belief in the religion of evolutionism?
First off, and I covered this in part two, evolution is not a religion. I won't repeat myself here on why that is, though. Suffice to say that since evolution has evidence backing it, I don't need faith to accept it. That is not the case with a belief in God. Belief in God requires faith because there is no evidence for any God.
Do you believe that creationism is anti science?
Depends on the creationist, but by and large, yes.
What was the first life form?
A primitive protocell.
Where did the first life form come from?
A series of increasingly complex chemical reactions, which is abiogenesis, not evolution.
Could the first life form reproduce on its own?
Yes, that is one of the criteria to be considered alive.
Did the first life form have DNA?
When you're talking about the three main clades, yes. Before that point, it was apparently an RNA world.
Did the first life form seek out food or did it use photosynthesis?
Both, likely, though the oldest fossils we have are stromatolites made of cyanobacteria that generated oxygen as a waste product, and they've been dated to about 3.7 billion years old.
Do you believe inorganic matter can spontaneously become organic matter?
That depends on the kind of spontaneous you are referring to. If you mean the idea that dead things spontaneously spawn degenerate forms of life, like maggots, mice, and mold, then no, that was disproven some time ago. If you are talking about the various chemical reactions involved in abiogenesis, then yes.
If yes, where is your evidence?
The various hypotheses of abiogenesis have considerable evidentiary support, from the formation of simple amino acids to the formation of RNA, which builds DNA. Quite a bit has been replicated in the lab, though there are some gaps still being investigated.
If life can form spontaneously from inorganic matter, shouldn't it be happening all the time?
It does actually. Deep sea vents do produce what we can use as examples of proto life. The problem is that this life is instantly outcompeted to extinction in short order by more advanced life that has the advantage of several billion years of development and specialization.
Do you believe all life shares a common ancestor?
Yes, that should be painfully evident from this cladogram, which analyzed the genomes of 2,000 life forms, including humans, and rendered this cladogram showing relatedness of them all.
If life can form spontaneously from inorganic matter, is it possible that it happened more than once on Earth millions of years ago?
Yes, but like I already said, that proto life was instantly outcompeted into extinction.
If yes, wouldn't that mean that it is possible that all life does not necessarily share a common ancestor?
The life we currently have all over the planet does have a common ancestor, as any new proto-life that pops up, again, instantly go extinct. They came too late on the scene, and thus excluding those exceptions in deep sea vents and all that other stuff, everything else on this planet, past and present, falls into a line of descent with common ancestry.
Do you believe that an organism can gain new genetic information?
Yes, this happens all the time in every new generation via mutations.
If yes, are you aware that this has never once been observed or proven?
It has been. This is one of those things you are misinformed on. Though we didn't know why till Mendel discovered genetics, we have been using artificial selection in place of natural selection since the dawn of civilization in animal husbandry and agriculture. Take the wild mustard plant, which has been engineered into 6 different plants. The information to make those plants was not already in the mustard plant, or it would have to look like all the others. Since it does not, this is obviously a result of mutations being selected for by farmers. Corn is another good example, as it only took 5 mutations to go from something like grass to maize. I think this is a good place to stop at. We'll power through the rest in the second